She laughed, not just a quiet chuckle or an awkward smile. She laughed loudly enough that everyone in the parking lot turned to look. "You actually paid $100 for that?" she asked, wiping tears from her eyes. "I've seen lawn ornaments worth more than this pile of junk." People nearby smiled. Some even pulled out their phones. Standing beside the faded, rust-covered sports car was a tired-looking single father named Ethan Carter. His 8-year-old son, Noah, tightened his grip on his dad's hand. "Dad," Noah whispered, "can we just go home?" Ethan looked at the old car one more time. Its paint had nearly disappeared beneath years of dust. The tires were flat. The windshield was cracked. Birds had nested inside the engine bay. To everyone else, it looked like scrap metal waiting for a junkyard. But Ethan didn't smile, and he didn't argue. Instead, he quietly said something that would change both of their lives forever. "Sometimes," he told his son, "the greatest treasures are the ones everyone else has already given up on." 5 days later, that same forgotten car would sell for $5 million to one of the greatest racing legends the world had ever known. Before we discover how $100 became $5 million and why one father refused to give up when everyone mocked him, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Stories like this remind us that true value isn't always visible at first glance. Now let's begin. The morning had started like every other Saturday. Ethan woke before sunrise in the small apartment he shared with Noah. Their home wasn't much. 2 tiny bedrooms. Old furniture collected from garage sales. A refrigerator that hummed louder than the television. Bills stacked neatly on the kitchen table. Every month felt like climbing a mountain with worn-out shoes. 3 years earlier, Ethan's wife, Lily, had passed away after a sudden illness. One ordinary Tuesday, she had complained about feeling tired. Within weeks, the doctors were delivering news no family ever wants to hear. After losing her, Ethan promised himself one thing. No matter how difficult life became, Noah would never feel abandoned. That promise came with sacrifices. He worked 2 jobs, one repairing small engines during the day, another cleaning offices at night. Sleep became a luxury. Vacations disappeared. New clothes became rare. Yet every evening, he still found enough energy to help Noah with homework and read bedtime stories. Noah never complained. He understood more than children his age usually did. One afternoon he had asked quietly, "Dad, are we poor?" Ethan smiled gently. "We don't have everything we want, but we have each other." "For now," Noah replied, smiling. "That's enough." Those words stayed with Ethan for months. Cars had always been Ethan's passion. As a teenager, he dreamed of becoming a professional automotive restorer. He loved forgotten machines, old engines, classic frames, hidden craftsmanship. His father used to tell him, "People restore cars because they love speed. You restore them because you see stories." After his father died, Ethan kept one old toolbox. Inside was a brass magnifying glass. Whenever he inspected old vehicles, he used it, not because he needed it, but because it reminded him of home. That Saturday, Ethan noticed an advertisement. Estate sale. Everything must go. Outside an abandoned farmhouse sat dozens of rusted machines. Old tractors, broken motorcycles, farm equipment, furniture. Most buyers ignored the vehicles. They wanted antiques they could quickly resell. Near the back of the property, hidden beneath a torn gray tarp, sat one forgotten sports car, almost invisible. The owner shrugged. "Nobody wants that thing. Been sitting there for decades. If you can haul it away, it's yours for $100. Several buyers overheard. One woman burst into laughter. "You'd have to pay me $100 to take it." Everyone laughed with her. Ethan walked slowly around the car. Rust covered nearly every panel. The badge had fallen off years ago. But something seemed unusual. Very unusual. The shape, the proportions. The hand-formed aluminum panels beneath the corrosion. He brushed away dirt from one corner. His breathing slowed. Then he reached into his pocket. He removed his father's magnifying glass. Tiny markings appeared beneath layers of grime. Hand-stamped numbers. Not factory engraved. Hand stamped. His heart skipped. No, it couldn't be. Could it? He paid, loaded the car, ignored every joke. As he secured it to the trailer, the laughing woman shouted once more, "Hope your son enjoys playing inside his expensive garbage." Noah looked embarrassed, but Ethan simply smiled. "You never know," he replied. "Sometimes history wears ugly clothes." Back home, Ethan didn't start restoring the vehicle. Instead, he began researching old racing archives, collector records, historic photographs. Every detail mattered. The steering wheel, the welds, the suspension geometry. Late into the night, Noah sat beside him. "What are you looking for?" "I'm trying to figure out who this car really is." "You mean it has a secret?" "Maybe." Children love mysteries. Noah became Ethan's assistant. Together, they carefully cleaned one small section after another. No sanding, no repainting, only gentle cleaning. Hours later, they uncovered a faded racing emblem hidden beneath old paint. Ethan froze. His hands trembled. That emblem hadn't been produced for ordinary road cars. Only a handful of experimental racing prototypes ever carried it. Most historians believed every example had disappeared decades earlier. The next morning, Ethan contacted a classic car historian. The expert sounded skeptical, until Ethan sent photographs. Minutes later, his phone rang. "Where did you find this?" "An estate sale." "Don't touch another bolt." "What?" "I'll be there tonight." The historian spent nearly 4 hours inspecting every inch. Finally, he stood silently, then smiled. "I've been studying vintage race cars for 30 years. I never thought I'd actually see one." "What is it?" Ethan asked. The expert took a deep breath. "If the remaining numbers confirm what I believe, you didn't buy junk. You discovered one of the rarest racing prototypes ever built. Only 3 had supposedly existed. 2 were destroyed during testing. The third vanished before entering competition. Collectors had searched for decades. No one found it. Until now, news travels quickly among collectors. Within 24 hours, wealthy buyers began calling. Offers reached $50,000. Then 100,000, $500,000, 1 million. Friends urged Ethan to sell immediately. "You've already won." But something inside him hesitated, not because of greed, because this car deserved its story to be told properly. On the 5th day, an invitation arrived. A private automotive museum wanted to authenticate the vehicle publicly. Collectors gathered. Experts examined every detail. Television crews arrived. People whispered. Some doubted. Others stared in disbelief. Among the guests walked a quiet older man, wearing a simple blue jacket. Most visitors barely noticed him, until photographers rushed toward him. It was Victor Moretti, a retired racing legend whose fearless driving had inspired generations. He had won championships around the world, but more importantly, as a young driver, he had trained under the engineer who originally designed Ethan's mysterious car. Victor stood silently beside it for several minutes. Then his eyes became emotional. "I thought I'd never see this again." He gently touched the worn steering wheel. "I was 19 when I first sat inside its prototype. The engineer used to say this machine represented every dream. He never had the money to finish." Victor looked at Ethan. "You preserved it." "I almost restored it," Ethan admitted. "I'm glad you didn't." The dust tells part of the story. The auction began. 2 million, 3 million, 3.8, 4.3. Bidders refused to quit. Finally, Victor raised his paddle one last time. $5 million. Silence. No higher offers came. The hammer struck. Sold. The room erupted. Journalists surrounded Ethan. One reporter asked the obvious question, "What are you going to do with $5 million?" Everyone expected luxury. A mansion, exotic vacations, sports cars. Instead, Ethan smiled. The first thing, "I'm paying off every debt." The second, "I'm taking my son somewhere he's never been." The beach. Noah laughed. "I've only seen it in books." The story exploded across the internet. Millions watched. Television stations replayed the auction. The woman who had laughed recognized Ethan immediately. Days later, she visited his workshop. She seemed uncomfortable. "I owe you an apology. I judged you. I judged your son. I judged something I didn't understand." Ethan smiled kindly. "We all do sometimes. You aren't the worst person because you laughed." The mistake would have been refusing to learn afterward. She thanked him quietly. People rarely expect forgiveness. Sometimes it changes them more than punishment ever could. Months passed. Ethan invested carefully. He didn't chase luxury. Instead, he opened a restoration workshop dedicated to preserving forgotten automobiles. Young apprentices trained there for free, especially those from struggling families. Above the entrance hung a wooden sign, "Hidden Value Garage." Underneath were simple words, "Never judge too soon." Visitors often asked about the sign. Ethan simply pointed toward an empty corner, the exact place where the $100 car had once rested. Victor Moretti visited often. Although retired, he loved mentoring young mechanics. One afternoon, he asked Noah, "What do you want to become?" Noah looked at his father. "I don't know yet, but I want people to feel the way Dad makes old cars feel." Victor laughed. "And how is that?" "Important again." The old champion nodded. "That's a wonderful answer." Years later, the famous prototype remained inside Victor's museum. One display plaque never mentioned the record-breaking price. Instead, it told another story. It spoke about an exhausted single father, a little boy who believed in him, a rusty machine everyone laughed at, and the lesson hidden beneath decades of dust. Visitors spent hours reading it. Many left inspired. Some wiped away tears, not because of the money, but because hope sometimes arrives disguised as failure. Life still brought challenges. Money never erased every problem. Noah still missed his mother. Ethan still wished she could have witnessed everything. On quiet evenings, they visited her favorite park. They sat beneath the same oak tree where she once read stories aloud. One afternoon, Noah whispered, "Mom would have loved this." Ethan smiled through moist eyes. "She would have told us something." "What?" "That the car didn't change our lives." "What did?" "The people we chose to become before anyone believed in us." Noah thought about those words, then nodded slowly. "I understand." Success had never started at the auction. It had started much earlier, on lonely nights, on exhausting mornings, during unpaid bills, inside tiny apartments, while choosing kindness over bitterness, when refusing to let embarrassment define their future. The $5 million merely revealed what already existed: character, faith, patience, love. Those things cannot be bought, nor can they be taken away. The next time someone laughs at your dream, remember Ethan, remember Noah, remember the rust-covered car worth only $100 in everyone's eyes. Sometimes the world mistakes appearance for value. Sometimes people confuse noise with knowledge. And sometimes the greatest treasure is simply waiting for someone willing to look beyond the surface. Never allow another person's laughter to become the limit of your future, because one decision, one moment of courage, one act of believing when nobody else does, can transform an ordinary life into an unforgettable story. The world will always judge what it sees, but destiny often rewards those who see what the world cannot. And that's why the greatest victories don't begin with applause. They begin with quiet confidence when no one else believes.